Hey guys, in this course, we are going to create a small single-page application using Vue.js. This framework has been growing a lot the last 2 years or so. It's a component-oriented framework that is easier to learn than React or Angular, the two most popular front-end frameworks today. After this course, you are going to completely understand how the Vue components work, how to connect those components, how to emit and manage events across the components, how to add the style, and a lot more. What is Vue.js? Vue.js is a progressive and performant JavaScript framework to build SPAs or single-page applications. It's one of the most popular JavaScript frameworks today after React and Angular. Why should you learn Vue.js? Vue.js makes it easier to create user interfaces and single-page applications. It's easier to learn than Angular and React. It is fast and lightweight. It provides an approach of reusable components with a clear structure and separation of concerns. This framework also applies the same concept that React. It uses a virtual DOM to render different parts of the document object model. And this framework is growing a lot in the JavaScript community and in the industry. What you should know before learning Vue.js. Of course, you need to know JavaScript and some ECMAScript 6 fundamentals. You need to know how import and export and modules work in ECMAScript 6. You need to know higher order functions, arrow functions, fetch API, and how promises work. These requirements are not just for Vue.js, but if you want to learn any framework, you need to know these concepts. Vue.js provides a reusable components approach. On each component, you are able to define the rendering part with HTML, the logic or behavior of the component using JavaScript, and then the look and feel of the component by using CSS. If we review the anatomy of a Vue.js component, we're going to see that we have three parts. We have the output, we have the behavior, and we have the look and feel of the component. The output is implemented by using the template tag, where we include all the HTML of the component. Then we have the behavior of the component that is implemented in JavaScript between the script tags. And then we have the style using the style tag, where we include CSS there. And this style could be global or it could be scoped. When we define that the style is scoped, it's because it applies to that component. Vue.js provides a command line tool to generate and build Vue applications. It supports Bubble, TypeScript, ESLint, and more, and also includes a dev server with hot reload. And it also provides a Vue UI tool to manage your application from the browser. And now let's get started working on our Vue.js application. To create the initial structure of our Vue.js application, we need to install the Vue.js command line interface using this command. And now that we installed the Vue CLI, we can create a project using two approaches. Vue create hello world, or we can use the UI. You can execute Vue UI, and this will open up the browser. And here we can access the Vue project manager, and we can create the new project from here. So if we go to the desktop, we can create a new project. Let's say tasks app. So we select Bubble and ESLint as the default preset for the application, and we click on create project. And this is going to install all the CLI plugins and initialize the initial structure of the application. If we use the Vue create application command, or we create the application by using this UI, it's going to generate the same set of files, the same project structure either way. Once the Vue UI finishes the project initialization, creating the basic structure of the project, we now have access to the project dashboard, and we have access to the actual project, and we can access the plugins that were installed for that project, the different dependencies of the project, some configuration. Here we can set the output directory and some other CSS settings, for example, the ESLint configuration, and we can execute some tasks such as initializing the server. So we can click on Run Task, and this will generate the server, and it also provides some analytics of the application. It provides information about the dependencies, the assets, some speed statistics, and if we click here, we can open the application. Okay, I'm going to close this. I'm going to divide the screen in two. I'm going to minimize this, and I'm going to open Visual Studio Code. Okay. And now I'm going to open the folder of the project. That is actually this one. Okay. So as with any other single page application, we have a base HTML file with a div typically, and all the content of the application will be rendered within this div. So we have this main.js file that is going to mount the Vue application on the div with this ID that we can see here. This is the ID of this div, and here is where this Vue application will be mounted. And here executes the render of the application. That is actually this component that is part of the initial structure of the application. So this image that we see here is actually this logo here, and it creates a hello world component that is on the components folder here. And these are all the links that we can see here on the browser. Okay, let's do some changes and let's start working on our application. So I'm going to remove the image, and I'm going to remove this component, and we're going to start creating our own components for the application. I'm going to remove the style, and as you can see here, each component includes these three parts: the template section, the script section, and the style section. Okay, let's remove this component and let's start creating our own components. So I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to call it task manager.vue. And here we create first the template section, then the script section, and at the end the style section. I'm using an extension that is actually why this syntax is being highlighted. And this extension also allows me to auto-generate, for example, this export default or the scoped attribute here on the style tag. And this extension is this one. And these are the features that it provides: syntax highlighting, some snippets, etc. Some formatting, debugging. There are a lot of extensions for Vue.js. Okay, let me close this and let's go back to our component. Here we need an element to enclose or to wrap all the content of this component. Okay, what we're going to do here is just to check that we are able to render this component within the app component. We're going to add a heading with the name of the component. And we are going to assign a name to this component here. It's an attribute that we need to declare. That is the name attribute here. Now, if we go back here to the app, we can, first we need to import that component. Import we need to declare the components here. And we can use the component as any other tag in the application. And as we can see here, we are rendering this H1 here. Let's say that I change this for an H3 and I save. We're going to see that the title is going to change. Okay, so let's add some more logic to it. So the idea for this application is to manage some tasks, to create tasks, to mark tasks as completed, to delete tasks. So that's the functionality that we are going to implement on this app. So one attribute that we need to add here as part of the app component is the data. So there is one attribute that we need to define here that is actually a function that is called data. And here we can put whatever we want. So we need to do a return. And in this case, we're going to manage a list of elements. We are going to use tasks as the name of this list. And we're going to include a list of tasks. Each task is going to have an ID, a title, and if it is completed or not, a Boolean. Okay, I'm going to copy this and generate a couple of tasks for this list. I'm going to change the ID to make it unique. This is going to be task 2 and this is going to be task 3. Okay. Now I want to render all these tasks, but I want to render these tasks within this component. So what we can do here is we can use the bbind attribute and we can pass, we can say tasks and we can pass the tasks as a parameter. Then if we go back to the task manager component, this is similar to React, where you need to declare the props. So we are going to create the props attribute here, where we declare the tasks that we receive from the app component. In order to do that, I'm going to create this array, and I'm going to add tasks as the value. I forgot to add this here. And what we can do here is we can iterate these tasks. But before doing that, we are going to wrap each of these objects using another component named task. So let's do that. Let's add a new file. Let's name it task.vue. And as usual, I'm going to create the template, the script tag, and the style tag. Okay. And here we can render the actual component, the task component. So first, let's define the name of the component. That's going to be task. It's going to receive task as a prop. So we need to declare here again. And here I'm going to render the task name. Let's go back to the task manager component. And here what we can do is we can iterate these elements. By using the before attribute, and we can say task in tasks. And here what we are going to do, we are going to include the task component that we created before, and we are going to pass each task to that component. So we're going to do import task from task. This is the relative path because we are in the same folder. And I'm going to use the component here. And I'm going to use the bbind attribute here to receive each task. And I need to also include a unique identifier that in this case is going to be the ID of the task. And in order to do that, I need to use the bind key attribute. And there is another property that I need to add here, that is the components property, where I declare all the components that I'm going to use within this component. Okay, let's go back to the task component. And I need to change this by title. And now we should see the list of titles for each of the tasks. Okay, we can also inspect the different view objects. Let me clear this. Let me refresh. What is this error? About task manager.view, bind keys, task.id. That's the problem, I guess. And refresh. Yes, that was the issue. Okay, and here we can see all the components using the Vue extension for Chrome. We have the root element, we have the app, we have the task manager, and then we have all the tasks component that we created. We can also see different events. If we use Vuex to manage the state of the application, we can also see the behavior here, and we can also see some other statistics and settings here. Okay, let's add some styles to this task just to show that the task it's completed or not, just to show the difference between those tasks that were completed and those that are not completed. I'm going to grab some styles. Okay, I'm going to paste those styles here. And I'm going to assign a class. Let's rename this as task item. And we can bind a class based on a condition. For example, I want to bind the isComplete class to those tasks that were completed. So we can use the bbind class attribute, and we can specify the condition to assign a specific class, and we can pass two parameters. We can pass the name of the CSS class. In this case, it's going to be isComplete, and we are going to assign that class to this element only if the task is completed. So we can do that like this: task that completed. And if we change, for example, we change the completed attribute of some of these tasks. For example, let's change the first task. We can assign that it was completed. We're going to see that now the task one is going to change the style. So this isComplete class is going to be assigned to the element. We can inspect it. And as we can see, this class isComplete is now assigned to that element. If we change that back to false, we can see that if we inspect the element, that class is being removed, and the task is not showing the text decoration with the line through anymore. Okay, let's add some more behavior to this task component. Let's add a checkbox to mark the task as completed. So I'm going to create an input. The type is going to be a checkbox. And we can assign an event using this attribute beyondChange, and we can assign a function to mark this task as complete. So we can create a function called mark complete, and we can assign that function here. There is a new attribute that we need to add here that is called methods. That is actually an object that includes a set of functions that is going to be defining the behavior of our component. So I'm going to add that function, mark complete. And I'm going to access the task using the this keyword, this.task that completed. And what I'm going to do here is switch the current state of the task. This.task that completed. I'm going to save this and let's try it. I'm going to click here and it's going to mark this task as completed. The same with the second one and the same with the third one. Okay. And here we can see the different components and the state of the components. So we can see that this is not completed. If I click on the first tasks, this is going to change to completed equals to true. If I click here on the checkbox of the tasks number 2, and if we go here, we're going to see that the attribute changed to true as well. Okay, let's add some layout to this component. So I'm going to create a header just to add a title to this application to make it look better. I'm going to create a new folder within the components folder that is going to be layout. And I'm going to create a header component here. And as with any other Vue component, we need to add the template tag, the script tag, and the style tag. And I'm going to use here a header tag. I'm going to assign a name to this component. That's going to be the header component. It's going to be header. And I'm going to include the title of the app using h1. I'm going to copy and paste some style here. And I'm going to assign the class header to the header element. Okay, let's go back to the app component. And here I'm going to include the header component. I need to import it. Import header from components / layout header. I need to declare it here on the components attribute. And now I can use it here before the task manager component. I'm going to save this. And as you can see, we have the task app here as the header of the application. Okay, let's go back to the task component and let's add a button so we can remove a task. So I'm going to create a button. Okay, in order to delete the task, we need to consider that the actual elements that we want to remove are part of the app. So if we see here on the browser, if we see the structure, we have our task. This is going to trigger the event, and this event has to bubble up from the task manager to the app. So we need to emit the event here to make this event bubble up to the task manager, and then we need to emit the event again to make it bubble up to the app. So we have access to these tasks, and we can remove a task from here. So let's go back to the task component. And what we can do here is, using the click event, we can define that we want to emit an event. We can assign a name to it. Let's say del task, and we can pass the ID of the task to identify what is the task that we want to remove. So this event will bubble up to the task manager that is including the task here, and we need to emit the event again so it bubbles up to the app component. And I'm going to do a b on del task. This is actually the name that we assigned here. I'm going to copy paste it so I don't make a mistake. And here we need to emit that again. $emit, and we use the same event name here, and we pass the task ID again, task.id. Okay, so we emitted the event here, so it bubbles up to the task manager, and then we are emitting the same event again, so it bubbles up to the app. So if we go to the app component, here we can manage that event and then remove the task of the ID that we receive as a parameter. And here we use the b on, and here we also use the name of the event, that is del task, and we assign a function to execute that operation. And if we go here to the script section, we can add the methods after the data function. So we have methods here, and we define our delete task function. We receive the ID of the task as a parameter. And here what we can use is a filter. So we can say that this task that tasks equals this dot tasks dot filter. And so for example, in this case, what we can do is all the tasks, and we're going to use an arrow function here, all the tasks that are different from the ID that we receive as a parameter are going to stay in the array. Okay, let's save this and let's try it. So I'm going to delete the task 1, And as we can see, it was deleted. So we can also check that we emitted the delete task or the delete task event from the task component, and also we emitted that same event from the task manager component. That's what we are doing here when we click the button, and what we are doing here to bubble up that event to the app component, where we manage the event by using the delete task function here. And we can remove another one. And as you can see here, we can see all the events that are emitted from these components. Okay, if I refresh, I'm going to get all the same data again, because this is stored in memory. It's not being stored in a database or in any persistent location. So this is just a front-end application. So another feature that we are going to include in this application is going to be the ability to add tasks. So I'm going to add a new component. I'm going to call it add task .vue. I'm going to create a template tag, the script tag, and the style tag. I'm going to add a div here. Remember that we need to wrap all the contents here by some element, by a single element. So we cannot do something like this, because this is going to throw an error. We need to wrap all the elements in a single tag. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a form. And I'm going to create an input text field, so we can create a new task, and also a button to submit this form. So I'm going to create an input type text. I'm going to assign a name equals title. Actually, let me check here. It's title. Yes, title. Okay. And I'm going to set a placeholder, add task. And I'm going to add a button or an input type submit. Let's use a task as the label of that button. And here I'm going to assign a name to this component as usual. That is going to be a task. And when we use a form, we need to assign some kind of model. So in order to do that, we need to create the data function. And we can return our model there. And what I need to do here in this input text is to bind that model using the bModel attribute. Let's use title here. just to use the same name of the attribute of the task object. And here what I need to do to handle this action is adding a submit attribute to handle the submit event. And I'm going to assign a function here. That's going to be the add task function. And as usual, I need to add a method attribute here, methods attribute, actually. And here I can create my function add task, where I'm going to receive the event as a parameter. And what I need to do here is first I need to do a prevent default to avoid the submission of the form. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a new task. I'm going to assign an ID. The ID should be unique. So I already installed the UUID library to generate unique identifiers. So I'm going to use it, UUID.v4. That is going to provide a unique identifier. Then the title of the task is going to be this that title, because we are binding this attribute here as the model of the text input. And we assign false by default to this new task. And now we have the same scenario that when we deleted a task, we need to add this new task as part of this array that is included in the app. So we need to emit an event and make it bubble up to the app. We're going to include this component here on the app. So we only need to emit the event one time. So after creating this task, I'm going to use this that $emit, and I'm going to add the name to this event that is going to be add task, and I'm going to pass the task as a parameter. Now I'm going to include this component here in the app. I'm going to paste this. I'm going to include it on the list of components. And I'm going to add it here. And as we can see, we have the input, the text input here, and the button. And what we need to do here is to catch the event or handle the event that is going to be emitted from the add task component. And we can do that by using the be on add task. That is the name that we use it here to emit the event. I'm going to copy and paste so I don't make a mistake. And I'm going to assign a function here, add task. and I'm going to add that function on the methods section. Add task, where I'm going to receive the task as a parameter. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to push that new element to the tasks array. And now I should be able to add the task. UID is not defined. Okay, where? Oh, okay, I need to import here. Import UID from UID. Now we should be good to go. Okay, now I'm going to add the task 4. And now here we go. I can add a new task. We can expect using the Vue extension that we are emitting the event from the add task component. So it's bubbling up to the app component. I can delete the task. I can mark the task as completed. And we can inspect all the events, and we can also inspect all the objects that are part of the application. I'm going to add a new task, so we can see it here. And this is the UID that was generated when I created this new task.